Welcome to the Reading Rift. I'm Lydia,
And I'm Beck.
and this week we are talking with the author of Godsbane, Lindsey Richardson.
And remember, this is an adult podcast with adult language, usually from yours truly. And we will be covering adult topics as usual.
And in this episode, it will be spoiler free for Godsbane, Lindsey's book. So if you haven't read it yet, you can listen in, kind of get some teasers, kind of learn more about the author. Thanks for being here, Lindsey.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so first off, we want to know, did you grow up in a reading household or did you kind of find reading on your own?
Oh, great question. Yes, absolutely grew up in a reading household. My grandmother was a huge reader. My mom was a huge reader. And my mom still is. I mean, she just will devour a book in like 5 hours. She'll just sit down and just be so consumed by it. And so I just really quickly, from the first moment I started learning how to read, I was like, I have to read. I have to read all the time. Of course, I went through, I think, what we all do when we get really busy in life, and went through a period of time where I wasn't reading. But I hopped back into it just as voraciously as I left. So it's like no time had passed at all.
You're like, oh, I'm so glad I remembered that I love reading.
I think that happens sometimes. We go through stages, it's like, oh my gosh, wait, books exist.
Yeah, really good books too. Yeah.
So, do you have any author idols or books that like shaped you in your reading or writing?
Yeah, I do. I'm a fangirl. Like that's just my love language. I love to fangirl all the time. I am a really big fan of Carissa Broadbent. I like you could her stuff's all on my shelf. It's very obvious. But I'm a huge fan of her. She's an autobi author for me, and I really like the way that she writes, very kind of lyrically, but also engaging and weaves the action in there. And so I think she's definitely an inspiration for me. There are others too, but like I said, I'm a fangirl. So pretty much if I read your book and I love it, you're now on my inspired, like authors I'm inspired by list. So,
I love that. Was there growing up maybe like a teacher? Oh, it sounds like besides your mom and your grandma that were readers, were there like a teacher, a librarian, an adult figure that really pushed you in reading and maybe kind of geared you to the idea of, well, maybe I could be a writer?
yeah. So I grew up in a really small town. I graduated high school with 80 people, and I think I started kindergarten with 60 of those 80. Like we just were all together. Everybody went to the same church. Everybody went to the same everywhere. And so I was really blessed to have teachers very early in my elementary school career that encouraged me to read and write and like really nurtured that. Over the years, were always cheering me on and encouraging me. So I had a really good support system there. But I do remember, I don't know, I know there's a little bit of an age difference here, but I don't know if y'all had the accelerated reader program. But I was always like, gotta take a test like every single day. I was like knocking out these like 2 point books, 3 point books just to keep going. And I had a teacher in the fifth grade once that was, I had a teacher in the fifth grade who was like, I think you could do one of these like big books. It was like, it was Little Women. It was 36 points. And she was like, I think you could do it. I didn't make it through the book. I eventually went back and reread it. But in the fifth grade, I didn't make it all the way through. But she was like, you're going to take the test anyways. You're going to try. And like, as a perfectionist, I was not, I was like, no, if I don't get all these questions right, there's no point in taking it at all. And so it was like that first real moment where I remember a teacher being like, it's okay to try to read something and then be like, well, maybe I'm not ready for this. And you can put it down and you can come back to it. But like that you should be testing yourself instead of just reading what comes easy for you. And so shout out to Mrs. Kraft in the fifth grade uh, for getting me hooked on big, thick chapter books.
It says you force your impeccable music onto people sometimes that are willing to listen. Do you have like, some examples of that music taste?
Yes. So I have to say that line in my bio started off as a joke with my husband because he pretty much hates all the music I listen to. So, and I was like, I think it's impeccable. So I'm going to put it in here. But my particular brand of ADHD is that I always have a song recommendation or a song lyric, or I will just break out into song randomly. It's really annoying. But so I'm always listening to music. And I think my music taste range is from everything from like 90s country and 70s rock to like I'm a big metal fan, and so and then I love like Taylor Swift, and I love red dirt country, and it's just kind of all over the board. So if anytime you're in the mood for something, you tell me what it is, I got a song recommendation for you for sure.
Awesome.
That is great.
When did you notice writing? Maybe it was not just a hobby, but it was
Mhm.
something that you want to pursue kind of more as a career. And kind of maybe like, did you ever have a gap in maybe your reading, writing, and then you got back into it? Kind of maybe what was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I let's go back to like the year like 2023. That's kind of when I started working on this book. I had two grandparents that got really sick. One passed away, and then 2 months later, the next one did. And so I found myself looking for an escape, something to do to occupy myself, to like help me deal with my grief. And so I picked up books and I started reading again. And I just really realized not only do I love reading, but that I love storytelling and I love writing. And I wanted to get back into that because I really spent my 20s doing all the things that you're supposed to do. You know, I graduated college, I got married, I started a really great career, I had two kids. And then, you know, when my grandparents passed away, it was this moment where I was like, I'm 34. I don't know who I am anymore. And I've been living my whole life as if, like, in the future, I'll chase my dreams. In the future, I'll travel. In the future, I'll do all these things. And it's like, none of that is promised. And I was like, my kids are starting to get a little bit older. They're figuring out who they are. Why don't I do that too? And so it's when I really started like sitting down and starting to write again. I have a degree in journalism, and so it's always been like something I wanted to do. But you know, you don't always go into a career based on what you get a degree in, and I certainly didn't. And so when I started not writing in my day to day job, I realized how much I missed it and how much I needed that creativity to just like keep me in a better like mental and emotional state. And so I started it as a form of therapy to deal with my grief and like just get excited about life again. And you know, I wrote a couple of things that I didn't really like, and I kind of scrapped them, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I wrote there was one piece of the book that I wrote early on that I almost cut so many times. I thought, oh, it's too flowery. Oh, that's not really, it doesn't really fit in. But it is the paragraph that over and over again, every time I read it, I'm like, I can do this. Like I'm actually like making a go at this as more than just a hobby. And so I get to kind of marry like all the things that I love, um, with fantasy and with romance and with writing. And you know, my career is in marketing, so I get to do all of that as an indie author. And so it just feels good. It just energizes me.
I just made a joke on somebody's post because it was an indie author talking about how
Mhm.
like you don't know as an indie author you also have to be like a marketing strategist or whatever. And I was like, I shouldn't get a degree in English. I should get a degree in marketing.
Mhm.
Just
Yes,
take
absolutely.
classes and degree in marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this journey of like writing and everything that you've been doing, did you ever doubt yourself or did anyone doubt you? And how did you handle this doubt?
Oh, I'm my own biggest critic. I doubt myself every day. Like imposter syndrome is so real. Yeah, I it's just one of those things, especially like on social media too, because they are, you know, the saying comparison is a thief of joy. And I think it's so easy to find yourself comparing your journey to other people's. And so it is one of those things where every day you're like, oh, I don't know, or oh, this feels hard, or I'm not sure if this is right. And I'm very lucky and very fortunate that I have an incredible support system at home that keeps encouraging me. And when I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, they're like, you already are. You are doing this. What do you mean you don't know if you can? So that's really helpful.
I think a common theme with all the authors we talk to is support system, like having people that
Hmm.
let them know, hey, you are a badass. Hey, you don't question it. You already are doing it. And we support you and are so proud of you. Because it really what matters is if you like what you're putting out and if you are proud of yourself. But we always have like a moment where we're like, oh, shoot. And we need people to remind us to like
Yeah,
lift us up in those moments.
absolutely.
What- So in this journey, self
Mhm.
doubt, trying to figure it out, what was the moment that you were like, wait, actually, I can do this and I'm going to do this?
Um, I am one of those people where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I make a checklist and I'm like, here's step one, step two, and just kind of go through the motions. And so, unfortunately, I think when you get to be like that, sometimes it takes some of the joy and the fun out of realizing, like, hey, you're really doing this. This is really moving. And so, there was a moment for me when I remember my book had gone out to ARC readers, which I was like terrified what they were going to say, and I was starting to get some really positive feedback and reviews in. And I was just, sitting outside under the moon, as one does, just hanging out, having a glass of wine. And I just had this kind of feeling come over me of like, you're supposed to be doing this. You're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. And so I think like that was really when I was like, all right, here we go. It's like I wrote it, I put it out there in the world. People are starting to like it. So I guess I did something right. So I can like sit back and enjoy it and really soak in the experience from that point on.
So was this the first book you had written? And was this the first book you had written to get published? Or like, have you written things before you just didn't publish? Or what was that?
No, this is the first book I ever published. I didn't know where I was going with this story at first. I knew I wanted to write something, and it was like I said, it was kind of like my therapy. And so I wanted to tell a story. I started writing several stories, which I was like, this is just not it. I don't want to tell this. This isn't who I am. And so this was really the first one that where this idea really stuck with me and really spoke to me. So this is the first one, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and still making mistakes. We are figuring it out as we go. But yeah, this is the first one.
I just have a follow up question with that.
Yeah.
Is I, as a writer myself, I write a lot of stuff, and like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this is this who I am.
Yeah.
Have you written stories in the past where you're writing it and you might have the intention like, yeah, publish one, but you just scrap it because like you don't want to put that out in the world because you don't feel like that's part of who you are as a writer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that I haven't like finished anything else completely. Right. I've written some short stories, part of a contest. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like. But as far as like a full on book, I never even made it out of the first few chapters because I was just like, I'm not vibing with it. This isn't feeling right. So I mean, they're shelved. Who knows? I might get the spark of idea and I might go back to them later. Or they might just be like, oh, that was a cool idea, but we've kind of moved on from that.
It was the idea that got you to the idea that got you to the idea that got you to this.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So going back to when you talk about mistakes you've made, the
Mhm.
revision process is kind of like crazy. Every author we talk to does it differently because writing a first draft is a whole beast in itself.
Mhm.
Then getting a finished draft that you're going to publish is also a confusing beast in itself there. So what was your revision process like for this book? So let's say from, okay, you have a finished draft. What was the process to get you to, okay, I'm going to click submit and get this published?
Yeah. I'm actually I love to self-edit as I go, which means it takes a lot longer for me to finish a draft, but I just feel like if I know there's things that need to be changed in the beginning to get my character where they are at the next point, like I need to get in their head and go back and edit that. But I really wanted to, so I finished a draft and I did some like really deep developmental edits. I mean, I had a whiteboard with like the red string and the whole thing, like connecting things. And like, does this make sense? Did I just leave this out here? And then I had a team of beta readers who were incredible, and they gave me some critical feedback that I really needed. And it could range from little things of like, hey, you mentioned this character, and then we know who are they? Like we never heard from them again. You just left them hanging out there in space. To like one of the beta readers I'll never forget. She told me that my character took too many baths, and I was like, well, that's odd feedback. And then went back and read it, and I was like, oh, girl is in the tub like half the time. I was like, we gotta cut this. Like this is way too. I went like overdid it on the like, oh, we need to take baths in fantasy. I just went like the full on opposite direction. So beta readers are really helpful. And what is cool is that after beta readers, I did a whole bunch more editing before I actually hired an editor, and we worked on that. And so the beta team, when I sent them an arc, it was like reading a different book for them. There were things that were different. I had changed the ending. I had rewritten the first like 10 chapters of the book. And so it was exciting to hear them, like to see their reaction, and for them to be like, this is so much like better. Like what you had wasn't bad, but like this is so much better than where it was. So that was really exciting.
Love reading my husband's first draft. And then and then coming back a couple months later and seeing what he's changed, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is like completely different, and I'm so glad that you did the revisions to get here. So I always think it's crazy of like, what do authors like? Some of my favorite books, like what was your first draft like? Who did you kill in the first draft, or who was alive in the first draft, or stuff like that?
I will say my brother, her husband, he writes a full draft and then edits it. I can't. I agree with you. Like if I'm like, I'm on like say chapter 15 and I know back in like 13, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm changing this. I can't. I gotta go back. I gotta go back right now because I'm not gonna finish this book if I know like the rest of this book is gonna be completely different from that chapter. So I understand him and I argue about this, but it's like I can't finish the book if the book's wrong.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I actually saw there was some discourse about this on Threads. There's always discourse. But someone was talking about this. And Bren Weaver, she wrote the Ruinous Love trilogy, Butcher and Blackbird. It was the first book in that series. She actually did this thread where she was talking about her process. And I responded to it. And I was like, I feel so validated because I also self-edit as I go. And it takes me so long to finish a draft. And so I love hearing somebody who is really established in their writing to say that they also do this. And so it was cool. She responded. She was like, oh yeah, like if you needed permission, here's your permission. So there you go. You're right there. If it works for her, it'll work for me.
Because I've heard writers say, well, it takes longer to write a book. Well, it's the creative process. You can't attack somebody for that.
No,
so
you can't.
In this process, so what is the most challenging part of writing to you?
Ooh, I think it is, because I write fantasy, I think it sometimes is just making it make sense. Because it makes sense in my head, but sometimes when I'm writing stuff down, I'm like, oh, I didn't really explain that at all. Like we kind of need to go back. And so it's like taking this like massive world and condensing it down into something that is readable, that is understandable, that doesn't take a massive glossary to get into. Like for me, that is the challenging part, is turning my ideas into something that's like readable.
Okay, so now we're gonna kind of talk a little bit more about publishing specifically.
Okay.
So this is your first book you've published, and you decided to self-publish. Did you ever consider going the traditional route? And if not, or so, what was your process kind of weighing those options?
Yeah, so when I first started writing, I thought that the only way to get published was to go the traditional route. And so I did a lot of research on querying and the whole submission process and how that works. And it kind of was like it was anxiety inducing. Like it's a lot out there. And so the more I wrote and the more invested in the story I got, the more I was like, I don't really want to give up creative control of this thing. Like I want to say what the cover looks like and I want to make the social media graphics and I don't want to wait the 2 to 3 year timeline that it takes for something to get published traditionally. And so I did a lot of research on like, okay, how does self-publishing work? How do you kind of make a go at it? And there's so many resources out there. The author community on TikTok and Instagram is just great. And so it's finding the right people and getting in and like people you can bounce. I mean, I still am like asking them questions once a week of like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? But for me, it was really like, I want the creative control. I want ownership of all that. And I want to do things on my timeline. So that's why I was like, I think self-publishing is the way to go.
I think that's a really great way to look at it, because sometimes I feel like both of them are a lot of work. Like, I feel like it's a lot of work to get a traditional deal, and it's a lot of work to like publish your book. So we've had it described to us as like different types of work. So you kind of have to pick your poison. Like, do you maybe want to not have as much control over the cover or the editing, or would you prefer to like put the funds for this stuff out in the front of everything? So yeah, we're kind of I say myself, like my husband is trying to decide, and so is Beck, about what are they going to do, self-publish or traditionally publish. And like, honestly, the more we talk to authors, I'm still just like, how do you decide?
I'm not. I have a novella that I've been sitting on for about 2 months now. I'm like, I've got to get this bad boy self-published.
Yeah, I mean, you have to love it. Like it's a passion. It is a full-time job in and of itself. But like, if you really love it, I mean, I think it's like, the sky's the limit. I think we are in a very different situation now in the publishing industry than what we were in just a few years ago. And like there are some incredible things happening in the indie space, and we can kind of do whatever we want. Like we can break all of the rules, and we can make our own rules, and we can twist the genre in ways that maybe it doesn't, naturally go that way in traditional publishing. And so it's just really fun and exciting too.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
And what are some misconceptions that you had before getting published about the publishing process when you started?
Well, I think I knew it was going to be really difficult. I think maybe I just didn't understand how difficult it is. It's like the little, like because you have to run a full on business at the same time. And so from little things of like, how do I buy an ISBN number to how do I get my book on Goodreads? And then like, oh, my audiobook needs a separate cover in different dimensions. And it's like every day it is learning something new, figuring out like how it works, how it doesn't work. But I think a big misconception I had, and one that I think a lot of people might have too, is that you know, just because someone is self-published or indie published, that doesn't mean that they tried traditional and they didn't make it, or that their book isn't good, or that like, oh, they're never going to sell any books, or nobody's ever going to read it, and that's just not true. And that I don't think that's really ever how it has been. But I think if it was going to be, it was more that way, several years ago. But things are different now with Book Talk and Bookstagram and all of these resources that are out there, and there's like I said, there's so many incredible things that are happening in indie books, and I will scream about it forever. Like if you're not reading indie books, you should be, because it's just really cool. That doesn't mean that they're bad. They're not. They're great. There's some wonderful stuff out there.
I think that's a really good misconception to point out because I'm guilty. I had like the same misconception until we started to talk to all these indie authors. And this year, I kind of like exclusively, it's mid-January, but I've read like 10 books. But I'm just saying, like, I've been exclusively reading indie books because that's who we're talking to. And now I'm on TikTok a lot and there's a lot of indie authors there. And I'm finding like I enjoy them. There's some books that are traditionally published that I'm like, oh my goodness, I love this indie book so much more. Like if people could read this book, if I could get this book in front of people, they would be obsessed with this book. So, yeah, calm down.
Lydia told me not to say what book, but there is a traditionally published book that I compared your book to, and I was like, I love your book so much more. But Lydia said not to say what book.
I just don't want to be like
I don't agree with comparing authors and comparing books like that, but I would say like it is true that there are just like they're not as popular because traditionally published books get pushed a lot more. But there are so many indie books out there that are like your book where it's like, guys, this is amazing. Why isn't this like in Barnes and Noble everywhere? What are we doing?
Yeah, we got to get on that.
We're gonna get on that.
Right now, call me Barnes and Noble. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, but I want to know kind of logistic question, okay, of how do you get your books made and to readers? So like, do you do the Kindle Unlimited? Do you use Ingram Spark? Do you do KDP? What is the logistic choices that you made for the legit publishing of the book?
Yeah, all of the above. So I knew that I wanted it to be as accessible as possible. And so, I grew up in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have a bookstore that was within the 30-minute drive. And so, at that time too, we also weren't shopping online. But now, even though my parents are still 30 minutes away from a bookstore, like they order things on Amazon. It's one of those things that it's just that's how they are able to get things. And so I knew I wanted my book to be there. Kindle Unlimited is the same way. I think people are already paying a subscription fee every month. So they're a lot more likely to take a chance on an indie author that they've never heard of and a book they've never heard of if it's not actually, really costing them money, if it's a part of the subscription fee that they're paying anyway. So that was a big decision for me. It was like, I want it to be accessible. Kindle Unlimited is a way that you can do that. And then I also, put it in the Ingram Spark catalog because they have a distribution network. And so then that makes it available for indie bookstores to be able to order a copy of the book. So you can go into any indie bookstore anywhere you are, and you can ask for my book by name or most indie books by name, and they can special order it for you and get it sent directly to the store. And so they can choose like, do I want one copy? Yeah. But you can be like, hey, you can ask for like 2 copies. It can sell well, and then they'll order some more. And so it's really about casting your net like as wide as you can to get in front of as many people as you can.
We have a local bookstore that we love, and we go to all their events and stuff. So maybe we should tell them next time we go in, we should say,
we should try to get one of their book clubs to be.
yeah, oh yeah, we should get a Godsbane book club.
I'm gonna go
that'd be
harass them
incredible.
tomorrow.
They would love it. Okay. So I know I wanted to ask about the audiobook because I know
Yeah.
you've got an audiobook in the works.
Yes.
It's soon pending, soon will be out for people. What can you tell us about that process as an indie author getting an audiobook? And then what can you tell us about any information, if you know any about when we can listen to that?
Yeah, so I love audiobooks. I'm a huge audiobook listener. And so I was like, I knew that I wanted to do this. And I just didn't know how to do it. And I got very lucky where I was just chatting with a narrator online, and she was like, I take direct contracts. I was like, you do? you could just like just fill out a form and I could just put it up there. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And so I got connected with Jackie, and she was incredible to work with. And so then I started talking to her about, hey, I really would love to do duet narration because that's my favorite type of audiobook. So I was like, let's just throw it out there. Who have you worked with that you would recommend? And she gave me a list of narrators, and I kind of said, here's my top 3. And she said, well, we shoot for the moon first. We're going to ask your first choice first. And so she copied me on an email that she sent to Anthony Palmini being like, hey, would you like to read this book? And he was like, yeah, I would love to. And I was like, I was dead. I was like, that is the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. Is just being able to get both of them. Like one, Jackie is incredible on her own, first of all. And I don't think that female narrators get near enough the attention in the book space that they absolutely deserve. Jackie is incredible. And so to have her, I was over the moon. And then when we got him too, I was just like, this is it. I've peaked. This is wonderful. Like, it's going to be so good. And so it's coming soon. We have had a little bit of a delay, life, other contracts, things happen. And so we have pushed it a little bit because I really want to make sure that we are delivering the best quality product. And the narrators want that as well. And they've been great to work with. And so a formal announcement of a date is coming soon. I'm hesitant to say it because we want to make sure that we've got the final production files in hand before we communicate a date, so we don't have to move it again. But soon. But the process was so cool, and I think that a lot of indie authors don't realize that you can reach out directly to narrators. Now, on the flip side, you are funding it yourself, so like that is the trade-off. I know several other indie authors that have been approached by companies who have purchased the audio rights, and then the company will produce the audiobook and cover the costs and all that kind of stuff. So there's really is like 2 different ways that you can do it. But we're full indie all the way, both in print and ebook and audiobook.
I will say, our sister-in-law is waiting. Like she is, because she exclusively listens to audiobooks.
Yeah.
So the day the audiobook comes out, she is waiting.
So my sister also only listens to audiobooks, and so she has also not read the book yet, and she's waiting. And I'm like, girl,
It's like, girl, I wrote this book. You're gonna love it. She's like, give me Anthony Palmini.
you're only trying to get an audiobook so she listens to it.
Are you able to share where that will be available? Like, will it be available Audible at the normal podcast sites?
It will be. We're trying to go as wide as possible. So it's going to be on Audible. I'll have like direct purchasing available on my website too when we get there. I think it's going to be on like Libro FM, several different places like that. But it is not going to be an Audible exclusive. It is going to be like as wide as we can get it out there. So hopefully wherever you listen to podcasts and audiobooks is where you can find this.
That's awesome. I love Libro because that also supports. Do you know what Libro?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Libro.
Good, awesome.
What do you wish readers knew about supporting an indie author?
Oh, I think what I really want you to know is that every post you make matters so much. Like it has a humongous impact on us. And I've talked to book creators before that are like, oh, I only have like 1,000 followers, or oh, I only have like 500. And so they think that like they don't have this massive following, that people aren't listening. And it is such a domino effect. Like you can make a video that one person takes that recommendation and they like it, and then they make a video, and then they get one more person, and so it's just that word of mouth and that chain. And I actually had something like this happen earlier this week. There was a creator who read my book, and she made a video about how much she liked it, and she had someone in the comments that was like, "Oh, well, I trust your recommendations." Immediately went and purchased it from my website, like, and then like sent a screenshot of like, "Hey, look, you influenced me," and that was like I cried. Because I was like, this is this tangible proof of like just some one person getting on there and saying, "I loved this book, you should read it." Like it just has such a domino effect. And we indie authors are out there, hitting the pavement every day trying to get people to know that our book exists. And so we see your posts, and they truly mean a lot to us.
I think this. So Callie Hart, who wrote Quicksilver, she kind of did a podcast interview where she said no one knew who she was. She just sent her book to a bunch of influencers, and like it wasn't really picking up. But then one person made a video, and then like overnight, Quicksilver like dominated 2025, 2024. Like,
And a
bro,
massive Netflix production in the works too for it now. And it's amazing.
the word of mouth thing is crazy, and like you just
Yeah.
never know. So okay,
Didn't that book originally start as indie?
yeah,
And now it's like one of the most
Yes.
renowned like,
mhm.
2025 books,
Yeah.
Brimstone. So that was crazy. Like, social media. Yeah.
So we want to kind of move into talking about spoiler-free teasers about your book. So we're going to ask you some questions, to kind of like quick answers, and then kind of see if people will be, oh, is this book for me? This is where you're going to find out.
Hopefully we can clip these and get them out on social media and start that ripple effect.
Yeah. So
Let's
first
do
question
it.
is,
What is your book elevator pitch to your readers?
Yeah, so the quick synopsis is it is about a woman who is born into this position of power that she doesn't want, and frankly, nobody else really wants her to have it either. And she has a really bad reputation because she has spent her entire life speaking out against the forced national worship of these gods that she believes have cursed her with this magic that she has to keep hidden. So the king dies mysteriously, and she is forced to travel across the country to participate in a vote to see who is going to be the next king. And along the way, she finds out all kinds of information and discovers that everything she thought she knew about herself and about her gods is actually a lie.
okay, if readers enjoy these 3 books, they will enjoy Godsbane.
Ooh, I think if you enjoy the like gods and mythos of Percy Jackson and the like fierce FMC of Throne of Glass and the kind of more lush descriptive prose of The Serpent and the Wings of Night, you will like Godsbane.
I agree. I also think if people liked Quicksilver, I think they also would like your book. I think like there's a lot of similar like funny dialogue and stuff that I think people would really enjoy too. You're next.
What emotional experience do you want readers to walk away with?
That's a really good question. I hope that readers can see themselves a little bit in Ivy's journey. I wanted to write a very fierce FMC who also was a little tender on the inside, but was kind of dealing with this whole idea of I've listened to everything that everybody has said about me for so long that it has impacted my own internal voice and how I view myself. And so I really hope that someone like resonates with that and realizes like you're more than just the boxes that people put you in, and you are actually like a layered person, and you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of affection, and you're more than your reputation.
Kind of going off of like what people might relate to in the book, what theme or experience from your own personal life made its way into your characters?
I think especially around that time, I was dealing with my own kind of complicated relationship with religion and faith. And so, this idea of deconstructing from things that you always have been brought up to believe, or this idea of trying to make sense of a world that doesn't really make sense, and that sometimes you like vehemently disagree with people and you're kind of bashing your head and they're like, why are you not listening to me? This is wrong. Like, why are you not saying something about this? And so, I think I kind of took some of that and used that in Ivy's story of like because you can do a lot of that within the safe bounds of fiction and within the bounds of fantasy too, because it's all completely made up. And so you can explore things deeper and in like a different way than you would ever really be able to do in like just your normal everyday life. And so I think a lot of that kind of went into her story too.
I think a misconception I had about books was I had to read like a self-help nonfiction, like boring book if I wanted to like grow. But now I know actually fantasy books are how I've grown a lot.
Over here reading the Stormlight Archive, crying my eyes out.
Yeah, like I had gone through a really rough time last year when I was getting into Fourth Wing and down the Sarah J. Maas pipeline. And so I read ACOTAR and I just had a miscarriage. I had a lot going on. I was really not doing great. Okay. And I read ACOTAR, and Nesta's book is like the last book in that series, Court of Silver Flames. And I really loved her arc of like kind of how she healed. And I was like, did I just grow from a fantasy book? And so now I'm like a super big advocate for books because I think they're fun and they let us escape life. But I also think that all types of books, fantasy, nonfiction, fiction, whatever, that they can actually have big impacts on individuals. And I think your book kind of does that too, with that female main character that just kind of has a lot that she could do in life. And she just needs people to hold her up and support her and not try to do it for her.
Absolutely.
And like on this, talking about the support and everything within the book, I want to say pretty strong start, dedication, the dedication of the book for anyone who has ever felt poisonous. This is like a pretty strong part. Was this like a pretty strong part of the origin of the book, or where did this idea come from, and why did you make it such a important part of the book?
So I loved the idea of playing off of the like comic book character of Poison Ivy a little bit in the like, what if maybe she wasn't a villain? What if she had this bad reputation, but really she was all of these other things under the surface? And like she didn't understand those things about herself. So there was really no way that other people could understand that. And so I wanted to do that and also explore, like I said, that feeling of being like your own internal self monologue being so influenced by what everybody else is saying about you and how you really feel like maybe I am this poisonous, awful thing that they keep calling me, and maybe I'm not worthy of this kind of redemption or of this love or any of these good positive things. And so the dedication is actually what I wrote last, because I knew I wanted the dedication to be like solid and important, because I was like, I don't know if anybody will ever read this book, but I don't know if I'll ever publish another one again, right? And so I'm like, I want to get it right. And there was a lot of pressure on that. So I waited to the end, and then I jotted a few things down, but this was the first one I wrote, and I just kept coming back to it. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't even remember why I woke up, but I just woke up and I was just laying there trying to get back to sleep. And I just kept thinking about, for anyone who has ever felt poisonous, over and over again. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like, that's the one. That is what's sticking with me. And that's what I hope kind of sticks with people too.
It was just a very profound dedication to me, because it was one of those, like, you're already thinking, well, I was already thinking about it because I read the book. And it was kind of one of those, as like just a person, not even like a woman, but it's one of those like, yeah, you kind of feel like, I guess, jaded, or like maybe like a little villainous, or that's not the right word, but it was one of those, like, this is one of those books where it's like you just want to feel like maybe a little acceptance or a little support. And oh my gosh, we're about to talk about the romance a little bit without the spoilers, but that was like, in this book, it was so good.
Just everything. Okay, but keep going to the next question.
Yes, next question. Oh, so this is just like a little thing we like, right? Asking our fantasy authors, how did you come up with the characters' names, and do any of them have different, deeper meanings?
So Ivy was the first. She came to me like fully formed, right? She was the first character I came up with, and I really, like I said, wanted to play off the idea of Poison Ivy, and so I definitely, like, I had her name solid. Everybody else's name, I think. I like to do this thing where I kind of hover over the keyboard a little bit, and like just see like, oh, let's get a first letter, and then kind of play from there. I will say the gods have. I'm a big Greek mythology fan, but I did not want to just use copy paste like the gods that you already know about. And so I did a lot of research and took elements from different gods that I liked and kind of used those to form mine and kind of gave some of their names pieces of that. And so it's kind of a callback, but it's like it's really deep. It's like I'm the only one who's ever going to know that. But like I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and that was always a good brain break too. When I was like stuck in a scene, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, oh, I can spend 3 hours researching Greek gods. That sounds fun.
Like world build. That kind of goes into
Yeah.
our next
Because our next question was, how did you construct your gods? And if you had any inspiration, which I'm assuming Greek gods were a big one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I watched a really cool YouTube video a few years ago, and I cannot find this video again or the woman who spoke in it, and I wish I could. But she was doing this whole video on if you give me a civilization and you tell me about the things that are important to them, I can tell you what kind of gods they would have created, like who, what kind of would be important to them. And that just really stuck with me. And so I tried to think about that a lot. I was like, I want to do something that's a little bit unique, but I also want to kind of tie in the Greek gods. But like, what would be important to these people? And so that was a lot of where I kind of came from.
Okay. I would say I did appreciate all of those kind of like Greekisms because I grew up on Percy Jackson. That was my like
Yes.
ask our authors like what did you grow up on stuff,
Hmm.
and we hear a lot like all like the Magic Treehouse and stuff. Mine was Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
So when I was reading
Love
this,
that.
I was like, this is this is what the adult me wanted.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about romance. My first thought was I have no thoughts besides I love this.
Oh my god.
But then I was like, wait, I'm the interviewer, so I have to come up with actual questions. So I want to ask, why was the relationship between the male main character, female main character meaningful for you? Why did you want to show kind of the relationship of a female main character getting support from their male main character love interest, but not in the kind of like, there is the kind of, oh, who hurt you, I will kill them vibe, but it's a little different. So can you explain kind of why you wanted that to be their story?
Yeah. Well, I think that that's the foundation of any good relationship is a true partnership, and it's about finding the people who lift you up and elevate you and support you, that don't like always feel like they have to take care of you or have to protect you. That like can recognize that you are strong on your own, and these are the areas where you're good at, and these are the areas where you need support, and that's where I'm going to kind of help you out. And so I really wanted that to be the dynamic, and the more that I got into Ivy's story, the more I realized like she is in a world where men are telling her to sit down and shut up all the time, right? So she does not want some man that's going to come in and be like, "Oh, I've got this. I could protect you. I'm big. You just, sit back." And like that relationship dynamic can work in a lot of books and a lot of stories, but it just would never make sense for her. Like she would never consider somebody like that a partner. Like it needed to be someone who was like, "I see you. I've got you. I'll support you where you need it, but like you go girl, you've got this." So I just really wanted that to be to the dynamic there.
Yeah, there was a scene. I won't give too many details, but she's on horseback. She's having a hard time, and she's kind of like, if I had grown up differently, if I had been treated differently, I would let him pull me off the horse and like take
Yeah.
care of me. But then she says, but I wasn't, so I'm gonna get myself off the horse. And I kind of loved it. And she said, not yet. Like it was like maybe in the future I could maybe lean on someone, but right now I have not like grown to do that yet.
Yeah. Well, and because I think too, in every relationship she's kind of been in before, or like maybe kind of started up, it was this whole like it was that other dynamic, and her being like, this does not make sense. And so I think she, especially at that point in the book, is starting to see that like, oh, maybe he's different. Maybe that's, maybe this could be something eventually. But
Yeah. So this is another like callback to Lydia and I looking through authors' pages and stuff. But do you have the support in your life? Because on your website we saw one of your very important reviews where it says, "I don't read this stuff, but I think it's good." Husband.
oh my gosh, he wanted me to be very clear with everyone listening that it's just that he doesn't read. He knows how to read, but that he doesn't read a lot. And so especially doesn't read romantasy. And so this was like the first romantasy book that he read. And so he was like, that was his comment. He was like, well, I don't really read this. He's like, but I think it's good. I think it's great. He was like, you kind of miss the inflection when you just read it. Like maybe people are going to think I'm a jerk. And I was like, no, absolutely not. But no, he is incredible. And at no point in this journey have I ever come to him and said, I want to do it this way. And every time he's been like, yes, absolutely. Whatever you need, do it. You absolutely run with it. He's actually one of the people who encouraged me to write this book because I came to him and I was talking about how, I wanted to get into writing. I wanted to do this. I've always wanted to write a book. And I had just read a book that I wasn't really vibing with. It wasn't really my style. And I had said, I was kind of frustrated with the way it ended. And I remember I looked at him and I said, I could do this. I could write a book. And he said, then do it. It was just straight up, just do it. And he's never looked back. He's asked a lot of questions because he doesn't understand the process, right? But it's more of like an educational standpoint. But when I came to him and I said, hey, I want to indie produce this audiobook on my own, he was like, all right, make it happen. Just do it. So yeah, I cannot say enough incredible things about him. Even though his review left a little to be desired. But no, it's perfect.
I will say his review was the strongest. It's the one I remember. Yeah, I mean,
It is.
what can we say? Like, if someone doesn't read fantasy and they pick up a fantasy book and they're like, "This is a good book," that we want to hear it.
Yeah. Okay, our
Exactly,
last
exactly.
romance question is,
Yes.
we want to know your thoughts because we kind of have been deciding a little bit about the way we read the book because you can make your own
We
voices.
read it differently, baby.
So we want to know, is the male love interest for
Mhm.
Ivy, is he shadow daddy vibes or is he cinnamon roll vibes?
I say he's a burnt cinnamon roll. So he is very broody and rough and tough on the outside, has this horrible reputation to people say bad things about him. And for the most part, he is some of those things. But he is such an ooey gooey cinnamon roll in the middle for her, but only for her. Uh, so maybe a little bit of both, burnt cinnamon roll.
It was funny because me and Lydia were talking about this, and I was reading some of the paragraphs to her in like the voice that I read it in, and I was like, I'm not gonna repeat the things that because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it was basically like, oh my goodness, and I was being dramatic, but I'm like, he is a cinnamon roll. I don't care if you think he's a shadow daddy.
And I was
He's down bad.
I was like, wait, I didn't read it that way, but I love it. I love thinking that he's like tough and stuff, but when it comes to
Mhm.
Ivy, he's like, I'm just gonna support her. Whatever she
She's
does,
doing-
I'm going after
Mhm.
that.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm really excited too because in book 2 we will get some point of view from his head a little bit more, and so I hope that translates really well, and you get to see how much of a cinnamon roll he is for her.
I'm excited. I love cinnamon roll, like the rugged cinnamon rolls.
Mhm.
But
Cinnamon roll,
the best.
new terminology that I didn't know
The
about.
burnt cinnamon roll. You didn't know about? Oh, it's the best.
I strictly read Shadow Daddies.
So this is kind of our closeout and a little
Mhm.
bit how. So everything here, it will be linked below. So everything
Mhm.
you say, we'll link it below so people can find it, whether it's on YouTube or one of our podcast platforms. How can readers connect with you? Social media, websites.
Yeah. So I probably should change my handle to my name, but my handle I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Threads. It's _Lindsey Writes _ at the end because apparently somebody had taken it without the bookend underscores. But like I said, I'm on those platforms. I also have a website. I have a little bit of a store on my website too, where you can order signed copies that come with all kinds of really cool stuff, like my art prints and bookmarks and things like that. So those are, and you can find my books on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, Barnes and Noble, online. Ask for it in your local indie bookstore. Please support indie, 100%.
Okay. And what other projects maybe do you have in the works? Like, sounds like you might have a book 2 in the works. Do you have anything else that maybe you can tell us about? Tell readers to get excited.
Yeah, so I have a novella that I'm going to be releasing in the spring, and it is a prequel story. However, I need to caveat it is meant to be read after Godsbane because it will spoil the book for you. Like you have to read Godsbane first, and then the novella is going to be a little bit of the prequel. It's going to give you a little bit of background about some big information that Ivy finds out on her journey. It's kind of going to give you the story of what happened there, how bargains were made and deals were struck with gods to get them into the situation that they're in now. And so it'll be really good information that you're going to need before you hop into book two, which I am currently still drafting. We don't have a target like release date yet. But that one's going to contain several more POVs. We're going to get a lot more of the romance, a lot more of the gods. So yeah. And then the audiobook coming out soon too.
Okay, I'm so excited I love a prequel novella, but you have to read it after.
Yes. Oh my gosh, those are the best to me.
Yes. So, quick question. I can't remember. Is this a duology or a trilogy? The Godsbane.
It is. No, it's a duology. It's a duology.
Okay, cool. Okay.
And then this is kind of, you have these things coming up, but what is your long-term vision for your writing career?
I just want to continue to write stories about really strong characters that resonate with people. And so I have an 8 to 5 career that I have spent a really long time building and working on. And so this kind of became like could this whole thing work? And so I think, I want to keep writing stories. And I think as long as people want to read them and keep buying them, I plan on continuing to write them.
And our last question that we ask every single author, we want to know, why do you write?
I write because I want to show my daughters that you are never too old to chase your dreams. There's always room out there in the world for your own unique brand of creativity and what you bring, and that no one can tell a story in the exact same way that you tell it. I think we hear it all the time. Oh, there's nothing original. Everything's already been told. Yes, but it's never been told the way that you're going to tell it. And those specific things have never been brought together. And so I just want to show my girls that you can do it. You can, even if writing or something like that in the arts is not what you end up being passionate about, you still bring your own unique perspective to the world, no matter what you do.
I really resonate with that. I have 2 daughters myself, and when I think about what would I want them to learn from my life, is I want them to learn that they can do anything and that they should try, they should fail, they should just go for it. So I love that. It's a beautiful reason. So thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom. And we are so excited to share your book and get more people to read it and hopefully blow it up. But also to just stay in touch with what's coming next. First audiobook purchase. Our sister, she's ready to go.
I'm right there, because I'm the one that buys her audiobooks for her. I'm gonna be right there with Libra. I'm like, I'm waiting, Jade. I'm waiting.
You're just waiting. Okay, but awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.